You never see it coming. Oh, is this thing on already? Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Video Game Villains. Today we're going to be starting a series going over the villains from Persona 5 Royal, starting with the Bastard of Lust, Suguru Kamoshida. Kamoshida's actions jumpstart the story of the Phantom Thieves and introduce us to the world of Persona 5. I won't be going into major spoilers for the rest of the game, but I will be hinting at various things to come, so keep that in mind. And as a warning, this video will be covering some heavy topics such as sexual assault involving minors and attempted suicide, so continue at your own risk if these are uncomfortable topics for you. When he was a teenager, Kamoshida had been a student at Shujin Academy, the school that the majority of the Phantom Thieves would later attend. He would go on to become a professional volleyball player and be a part of the gold medal-winning Olympic team. After winning the Olympics, he returns to Shujin Academy to become their PE teacher. To the outside eye, everything seems to be okay at Shujin, as the principal is very concerned about the school's image and works hard to cover up and shut down any scandals that might arise. However, this is anything but the case. Kamoshida beats the students, forces the boys' teams to go through unreasonably rigorous training regimens, and sexually harasses and abuses the girls. Early on at Shujin, he decides to target the track and field team. He has a disagreement with the previous coach and gets him fired, and then plots to shut down the team. He somehow learns about Ryuji's home situation with his abusive dad, and blackmails one of the other students, Mishima, into spreading this information to the rest of the team. One day, when Kamoshida quips about Ryuji's dad to him, Ryuji snaps and hits Kamoshida. He retaliates by breaking Ryuji's leg and shutting down the team due to this act of violence. Kamoshida had also found out about Joker's criminal record, which we'll be covering as part of a future video, and similarly has Mishima spread this information throughout the student body, alongside a couple of embellishments, causing him to be ostracized by many of the students.
Oh, you know this guy, Yoshizawa?
Yes, he lent me a helping hand earlier.
I recommend you steer clear of the likes of him if you have any consideration for your future.
As for the girls, he abuses his position in order to manipulate and take advantage of them. He discovered and grew attached to An because of her modeling career, and leverages her best friend Shiho's position on the volleyball team in order to have An flirt with him. She reluctantly goes along with Kamoshida's advances to help out Shiho, to the point where rumors started circulating that the two of them were dating.
Come on, dude, you can't go after Kamoshida's bitch.
During a conversation between An and Shiho, An notices that Shiho had a black eye, but Shiho claims came from practice, although it's implied that the injury comes from Kamoshida beating her.
He told me to go to his place after this. You know what it means.
Kamoshida makes a direct request for An to come over to his place, for reasons that I'm sure everyone can infer, and this is the line that An refuses to cross. She turns down Kamoshida and has a bit of a breakdown while Joker hears her out, where she realizes that he might not be quite the delinquent that Kamoshida was claiming he was. Meanwhile, back at school, Mishima approaches Shiho and tells her that Kamoshida had asked for her and is waiting in the PE faculty office. The next day, on the way to school, some students note that Shiho had missed an important meeting and talk about rumors regarding her and Kamoshida staying late together. During class, one of the students by the window notices Shiho standing on the roof.
I'm sorry. I can't take this anymore.
Shiho? Huh? Kamoshida?
While the game never explicitly states what transpired, it's quite clear that Kamoshida had sexually assaulted Shiho the previous night after asking her to stay late. Feeling like she needed a way to escape, Shiho climbs up to the roof of Shujin Academy and jumps. Ryuji notices Mishima backing away from the crowd that had gathered, and decides to chase after him in order to get some answers. Mishima admits that Kamoshida would commonly call students, including him and Shiho, to the teacher's room whenever he was in a bad mood and hit them. Yesterday was odd though, as Shiho hadn't done anything specifically to get called out like she did, but Kamoshida seemed really irritated.
He didn't. That son of a bitch! You bastard! The hell did you do to that girl?
What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb with me!
That is enough!
What you did wasn't coaching.
What did you say?
You ordered me to call Suzui here. I can only imagine what you did to her.
The three of them confront Kamoshida, who doesn't deny anything, but instead implies that they have no proof of anything and claims that they're just lashing out at him out of jealousy. He then states that even if, hypothetically, they were right about things, that there wasn't anything they could do about it. Shiho was in a coma with low chances of recovery, and thus she was unable to make a statement. Joker stops Ryuji from hitting Kamoshida again, before Kamoshida taunts them, and says that everyone present will be expelled after he reports them at the next board meeting. He then reveals that Mishima was the one who leaked Joker's criminal record to the student body, causing him to be initially ostracized, to which Mishima crumbles to the floor, saying that he had no choice as Kamoshida forced him to do it.
You're done for. Your futures are mine to take. Now get out of my sight.
On approaches Ryuji and Joker and asks to join them in trying to take down Kamoshida, as Shiho was her best friend and it was personal for her. Ryuji refuses as he didn't want to expose more people to the metaverse that he and Joker had discovered that contained the inside of Kamoshida's mind. So, I just mentioned the metaverse, but what exactly is it? In the world of Persona 5, the metaverse encompasses the interior of people's minds and manifests it in some form of alternate reality. And when someone's desires are distorted enough from reality, a palace is formed, which houses a physical form of these desires called a treasure.
That's the treasure. We finally found it!
The palace is ruled by the shadow, or cognitive, version of the person with distorted desires, represents the real-world location that is the source of their distortion, and takes the form of whatever they view that location as. Morgana, a talking cat whose existence will be elaborated on in a later video, explains to the Phantom Thieves that they can use these palaces to change people's hearts by stealing the treasure from within. In Kamoshida's case, the location of his distorted desires is Shujin Academy, and he views it as his own personal castle. The dungeons of the palace house the male athletes undergoing beatings and brutal training regimens, while the upper floors hold the female students, scantily dressed and waiting on Shadow Kamoshida. While walking to school on the first day, Joker encounters An and the two of them are offered a ride by Kamoshida. An accepts but looks uncomfortable doing so, and Joker refuses. He then meets Ryuji, and the two of them attempt to make their way to school together, but are unknowingly taken into the metaverse and arrive at Kamoshida's distorted view of the school instead. The two of them are captured by some guards, and shortly thereafter meet Shadow Kamoshida, the ruler of the palace.
Not only did you sneak into my castle, you committed the crime of insulting me, the king!
As the first visit serves as more of a quick introduction to the metaverse, and Joker and Ryuji don't fully understand what the concept of a palace is yet, they escape fairly quickly and not a whole lot more is revealed about Kamoshida in this first visit. The second visit to the palace has Joker and Ryuji learn about the beatings the male athletes are receiving, and Ryuji attempts to memorize everyone's faces so that he can help them back in the real world. In the main hall, the two of them are stopped by Shadow Kamoshida, who taunts Ryuji until he cracks and awakens to his persona.
You made me wait quite a while.
You seek power, correct? Then let us form a pact.
They manage to defeat Shadow Kamoshida's guards and escape back to the real world for now. After Shiho's attempted suicide, Joker and Ryuji return to the palace, but An secretly follows them in. Since she is an important person in Kamoshida's mind, the guards of the palace recognize and capture her and alert Shadow Kamoshida. Shadow Kamoshida shows up with his cognitive version of An, revealing how he truly views her.
I do as I please here. After all, this is my castle, the world of my desires.
He orders his guards to execute the real An, but is interrupted by Joker and Ryuji arriving after hearing her cries for help. He claims that An was just like them and only entered his palace because she was pissed, before blaming her for what Shiho did.
But, I forget that chick's name. But it's your fault she jumped, you know.
Huh?
You were so reluctant to throw yourself onto me that I had her take your place.
An questions if this is her punishment for what happened to Shiho. Shadow Kamoshida capitalizes on her dejected state, but Joker is able to snap her out of it, and An awakens to her persona and resolves to help the as-of-yet unnamed Phantom Thieves attempt to take down Kamoshida.
My, it's taken far too long. Tell me, who is going to avenge her if you don't? Forgiving him was never the option. Such is the scream of the other you that dwells within. I am thou, thou art I. We can finally forge a contract.
I hear you, Carmen. You're right! No more holding back!
After raiding the palace and making their way to the highest floors where the treasure was, Phantom Thieves discover Shadow Kamoshida once more, furious with his guards for having not captured the intruders yet. They retreat for now, having secured their route to the treasure, in order to send a calling card to Kamoshida and have the treasure manifest physically.
A calling card?
I heard it was already posted by the time everyone got here this morning.
Sir Suguru Kamoshida, the utter bastard of lust. We know how shitty you are, and that you put your twisted desires on students that can't fight back. That's why we have decided to steal away those desires and make you confess your sins. This will be done tomorrow, so we hope you will be ready. From the Phantom Thieves of Hearts.
With the calling card sent and the treasure manifested, the Phantom Thieves return to the palace to change his heart. They grab the treasure and attempt to walk it out of the palace, but Shadow Kamoshida appears and spikes the trophy out of their hands. He taunts them and transforms before attacking.
That's right. I'm not like you. I am a demon who rules this world!
What the hell?
During the fight, he pulls out all sorts of stops, including ordering his cognitive versions of Mishima and Shiho to attend to him. After being defeated, Shadow Kamoshida scrambles to recover his treasure and tries to make a getaway. He makes up excuses about how he was under pressure from having everyone's expectations forced upon him, and how he's not wrong for demanding a reward for his services. An, however, isn't falling for anything he's saying, and shouts at him, causing him to submit and hand over the treasure.
Do you want to finish him off? It's your call.
No, please wait. I beg you. Just forgive me.
Shut up. I bet everyone told you the same. But you took everything from them!
I accept defeat. You want this? Take it. Go ahead and finish me off. You do that, and my real self will go down too.
An is tempted to finish off Shadow Kamoshida where he stands, but stops herself, realizing that if his mind shuts down, he would be unable to admit to his crimes back in the real world. With the treasure in hand, the palace starts collapsing, and the Phantom Thieves flee and return to the real world, and await Kamoshida's change of heart. After the Phantom Thieves steal the treasure, Kamoshida lays low until the day of the board meeting, May 2nd. On that day, the school decides to host an assembly to talk about the aftermath of Shiho's attempted suicide and some steps to move forward from it, when Kamoshida bursts into the gymnasium.
I have been reborn. That is why I will confess everything to you all.
To the surprise of everyone else, Kamoshida confesses to his crimes, including being the reason that Shiho tried to kill herself. He rescinds his expulsion threats and states that he will claim responsibility for his actions and kill himself. An calls him out, saying that since Shiho was still alive despite not wanting to be, that he had no right to take the easy way out. Kamoshida realizes she's right and takes it back, saying that he should be punished by the law to atone for his crimes, and cries for someone to call the police. After the assembly, Mishima and some other students approach An to apologize to her. Mishima says that we all knew but pretended like we didn't, likely fearing repercussions from Kamoshida, while the girls apologize for spreading rumors and not knowing what was going on. Shiho regains consciousness in the hospital, and An is able to have a short visit with her. Shiho apologizes that An felt she had to flirt with Kamoshida for her sake, and her mom mentions that she's going to have Shiho transfer schools, as she would probably have been labeled and traumatized from all that transpired. Throughout An's confidant, we learn bits and pieces about Shiho's recovery. An frequently visits her and supports her throughout her physical therapy, and during her 9th confidant level, we get to see Shiho in person again when An and Joker accompany her to revisit the rooftop. Shiho wanted to settle things, to come back to the place where it all happened, and prove to herself that she had conquered some of her trauma. She comments about how she didn't necessarily want to die, but needed to escape, and had a voice inside telling her to come up here and jump. Thanks to An's support, Shiho has been able to recover from the incident. The part of her that told her to jump is no longer there, and she is able to obtain some closure. As for the school, a couple weeks after Kamoshida has his change of heart, they decide to bring in a therapist for the students to talk to, and encourage those most directly affected by Kamoshida to seek counseling sessions. Ryuji seems surprised that the school actually, quote, gives a shit about their mental health, and An notes that the school made national news, so they probably felt obligated to give the appearance of doing something. And given the principal's connections, knowledge of the incidents, and attempts to cover it up, she was basically right on the money.
That dirtbag just sees women as sexual outlets. Don't make me laugh with that love bullshit.
Kamoshida is an excellent villain to start off with and get us hooked into the story of Persona 5. But what is it about him that does such a good job at capturing our attention and sucking us in? I think the biggest factor is relatability. While I hope that nobody here has met someone remotely as big of a psychopath as Kamoshida is, he exhibits a lot of traits that I'm sure practically everyone has had to deal with. The teacher that hates kids, the soccer coach who clearly plays favorites, the manager who's maybe a bit too friendly or handsy with the female staff. The power-tripping adult is something that we all know, we've all experienced, we've all heard our friends' experiences, and so when we see aspects of these people in Kamoshida, it makes him very easy to hate right from the get-go. Going even further, I'm sure we're all familiar with, although hopefully significantly less of us have had personal experiences, the exact flavor of evil that Kamoshida is. It's unfortunately not terribly uncommon to see stories accused of sexual misconduct making the news, and so Kamoshida's crimes are something that we're all used to hearing about. Combining these 2 points, we can see that Kamoshida is a very believable villain. He evokes visceral responses in us because he brings us back to a time when we were in an abusive situation, or heard of someone else being in an abusive situation. And so it's a no-brainer that we all go, "F that guy." Hating someone like Kamoshida is so natural that there are stories claiming that even in prison, sex offenders are among the most hated people, and many opt not to disclose the reason for being there to other inmates, or check into protective custody for their own safety. But surely with how problematic Kamoshida is portrayed, Atlas wouldn't have a second adult get involved with a minor, right? Or a third? Or your doctor? Or another teacher at the same school? The key words for Kamoshida's palace were Shujin Academy and Castle, and the interior of the palace reflects just how he sees the school. Starting off in the dungeons, we can see the male athletes locked up and forced to withstand beatings and undergo brutal training routines. The fact that all of the men we see in the palace are located in the dungeon receiving physical abuse really demonstrates his priorities, where he only cares about the students that would be able to satisfy his sexual desires.
I heard that Kamoshida's using physical punishment. They're just rumors, but...
Moving on from the dungeons, we reach the main body of the castle. In the main body, we notice that none of the male students appear anywhere, but we do encounter scantily dressed female students all catering to his every desire. The appearances and behaviors of these cognitive girls shows us what Kamoshida really values in them, with that being their sex appeal. As the Phantom Thieves enter the chapel, they get a vision of the real world, showing that Kamoshida likens the school gym to a place of worship. The giant statue of Kamoshida shows us that he believes himself to be the god when in the gym, and that everyone needs to worship him while in his domain. As we continue on through the castle, we primarily just get more confirmation of what we just discussed. The book puzzle has us find books to associate with Kamoshida, a list of female students, and a list of male students, with the book titles being The King, The Queen, and The Slaves, respectively. And the statues in the upper area of the castle resemble the female volleyball students in their jersey and bloomers, assuming a mildly provocative pose. Looking at what Kamoshida says to Joker and Ryuji when they're fleeing his palace, we see just how comfortable he is with ruining people's lives. We've already covered the damage he did to Shiho, but his derangement is so much more petty than that. Shadow Kamoshida reveals the reason he got the previous coach fired and the track team shut down was because of a simple disagreement. He implies here that he escalated things simply because the old coach got in his way. In the way of what is unknown, but given Kamoshida's behavior, it seems likely the old coach could have been trying to stop something heinous. He also refers to how he broke Ryuji's leg. We learn from Ryuji's confidant the whole story of what happened with the track team. Kamoshida had somehow learned that Ryuji's dad was abusive and had Mishima spread these rumors to the rest of the team. When Ryuji had had enough of Kamoshida's bullying, he lashed out and hit Kamoshida, who responded by breaking Ryuji's leg and disbanding the track team. Many of the former team members blame Ryuji for this and hold it over him. Only Ikeda, the former leader of the team, really seems to grasp the reality of the situation. He felt somewhat forced into obeying Kamoshida so that he could obtain a letter of recommendation, but later on notes that Kamoshida was never going to write that letter, and Ryuji was just the excuse not to, rather than the reason. He also has absolutely no issues ruining Joker's life. He learns about Joker's situation regarding his criminal record, and has Mishima spread this information to the entire student body, causing Joker to have a difficult time fitting in.
You think that's him? Huh? The one in the rumors?
But he might slug us if we look him in the eye.
Social standing is very important for a high schooler, and it's not uncommon to have a difficult time recovering from a bad first impression or an unfortunate label. We can see this happen with Shiho, who transfers schools in part due to worry about getting labeled after everything that happened. Kamoshida sabotaging Joker's social standing for no real reason demonstrates a complete lack of regard that he has for others. Additionally, because of the criminal record, he knows that Joker is already on thin ice, and getting expelled could potentially straight up ruin his life, but still threatens to expel him alongside Ryuji and Mishima anyways. The final confrontation in his palace reinforces a lot of what we've already discussed about Kamoshida.
People around me were the ones who kept it secret. Adults who want to share in my accomplishments, students who have the drive to become winners. They willingly protect me so that we all may profit from it.
His disregard for others is once again shown when he doesn't even refer to Shiho by name, but rather just as that girl who tried to kill herself.
Drop the attitude, you mediocre peasant. There is no wrong in using my gifts for my gain. I'm a cut above all other humans.
In order to fight the Phantom Thieves, he transforms into Asmodeus, the demon of lust. Asmodeus is fully nude, further reinforcing the distortion of Kamoshida's desires towards lust. A couple of his abilities in the fight also demonstrate this. Libido Boost has him consuming one of the naked girls from the trophy sitting in front of him, fully healing Asmodeus, implying that his lust sustains him. And Lustful Slurp has him pour his bikini-laden cognition of On from the wine glass into his mouth to slurp on for a second, increasing his attack, implying that his lust is a source of his power. Partway through the fight, he calls on his slaves to bring him his volleyball, so that he can perform his kill shot. A cognitive Mishima brings it for him, only to be shouted at for being slow, and when the attack doesn't provide the results Asmodeus was looking for, he blames it being underpowered on Mishima's presence and chases him away.
I knew it! I can't go all out with Mishima providing the backup! Hey, shit for brains! Get off my court!
The next to arrive with a volleyball for Asmodeus is his cognitive version of Shiho, dressed and behaving exactly as we'd expect her to be right now. Also as expected, Asmodeus praises Shiho for doing the same thing that Mishima had just done, and she remains in the fight, providing further volleyballs to Asmodeus if she isn't dealt with. Finally, in the last phase of the fight, we get an option to send someone on a side quest to steal the crown off of his head. If On is sent, due to her being a girl and Kamoshida's object of desire, Asmodeus catches her almost immediately, while he doesn't notice at all if either Ryuji or Morgana are sent. Once the crown is knocked off his head, he gets dejected and takes significantly increased damage, demonstrating just how important his treasure is to him. While we're on the topic of the treasure, when the Phantom Thieves bring it out of the metaverse back into the real world, it manifests as Kamoshida's gold medal from the Olympics.
So, that perv kept clinging to his past glory and couldn't let it go.
The source of Kamoshida's distortion, the catalyst that set this all into motion, was his gold medal. It's understandable that he would consider his medal as being important to him. I mean, it's an Olympic gold medal. Of course he would. But Kamoshida let it define him, and let it inflate his ego to the point where he felt untouchable. And unfortunately for the students of Shujin, he effectively was. He used his prior success to convince people on the outside that he knew what was best, and due to the principal's desire to maintain the appearance of Shujin Academy, he was able to keep some open secrets within the school from spreading out to the general public. The Megami Tensei franchise is known to borrow from various folklores and mythologies across the world, and Persona 5 utilizes this to do an excellent job of achieving storytelling through gameplay. Each of the palace rulers represent one of the deadly sins, with Kamoshida here obviously representing lust, and the design choices of the game help further cement his identity. To begin with, the Royal Edition added something called will seeds to each of the palaces. Will seeds are the coalesced distortions of the palace rulers, and upon looting one of them, we see that they represent the same sin as the palace ruler. As such, the will seeds in Kamoshida's palace are the lust seeds, and when combined form the Crystal of Lust, which can then be upgraded into the Ring of Lust. The final will seed in every palace has a high-level shadow guarding it, and the one guarding Kamoshida's final will seed is Mara. Before we go into the lore of Mara, I mean, just look at him. And also his complete form. I really hope I don't need to spell it out for you. Mara is a demon in Buddhist stories, who is known for trying to tempt the would-be Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, prior to him reaching enlightenment. His name means death or destruction, and the Denkoroku refers to him as the one who delights in destruction. As Siddhartha was meditating beneath a Bodhi tree, Mara supposedly brought vast armies of demons to attack him, but Siddhartha did not waver. He then sent his 3 daughters in to seduce him, but this also failed. Finally, Mara challenged Siddhartha's right to sit on the throne of enlightenment, and used his demon armies as his witness for his claim to the throne. Siddhartha then reached out to touch the earth with his right hand and called upon it to be his witness. The earth deity rose up to be Siddhartha's witness and created a tsunami to wash away Mara and his army, allowing Siddhartha to reach enlightenment. His depiction in the Megami Tensei franchise seems to be a combination of his reputation as the tempter of worldly desires, as well as a pun based on what the word Mara means in Japanese. Next up, we have the name given to Shadow Kamoshida during the boss fight against him, Suguru Asmodeus Kamoshida. Asmodeus, according to Christian lore, appears in the Book of Tobit. In this story, he has fallen in love with a human named Sarah, and kills all of her suitors on their wedding night before they are able to consummate the marriage. With the help of the Archangel Raphael, Tobit is able to perform a ritual involving a fish's gallbladder, liver, and heart to keep Asmodeus at bay, and is able to marry Sarah. In 1589, German Bishop Peter Binsfeld published a list of demons alongside their classifications, assigning each of them one of the 7 deadly sins. According to Binsfeld, Asmodeus was representative of lust, though I was having difficulty figuring out the reason why. So if you have any idea of how lust was assigned to Asmodeus, please let me know in the comments. Additionally, in the Ars Goetia of the Lesser Key of Solomon, Asmodeus is the 32nd demon listed, and he is given the title of a great king of hell. He is described as having 3 heads, one of a bull, a man, and a ram, alongside having the tail of a serpent, and he sits upon a dragon. He governs 72 legions of spirits and teaches the arts of arithmetic, astronomy, geometry, and handicrafts. Now, this next point could just be a coincidence, but I have a hard time believing that to be the case. Among the regular shadows that appear in his palace, we can find 2 demons that are known for their sexual deviancy, Succubus and Incubus. Both of these demons are said to drain the life force from men and women respectively by having intercourse with them while they are sleeping. And finally, although unconfirmed by Atlas, many fans have drawn similarities between Kamoshida and Olympic gold medalist Masato Uchishiba. Masato took home the gold medal in both the 2004 and 2008 Summer Olympics in men's judo in the under 66 kilogram division. In 2010, he began coaching the women's judo team at Kyushu University, but would be released a year and a half later due to allegations of sexual harassment. A month later, he was arrested on charges of sexual assault, and in 2013, the court denied Masato's claims that it was consensual, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And that's it. That's the last that we see of Kamoshida. Right?
What? You're...
Kamoshida!